The grand hall of the Velkhari Empire shimmered with silver light as hundreds of noble figures gathered for the ceremony. Their tall, elegant forms moved like water through the massive chamber with its crystal walls, reaching toward the purple sky above. At the center of it all stood High Matriarch Celis upon her raised platform, wearing robes that seemed woven from starlight itself. Lady Ishara stood before them all in chains. The ceremonial bonds were not heavy, but their weight crushed her spirit far more than any metal could. She had once walked these halls as an honored member of the council. She had advised on matters of trade and diplomacy. She had been respected. That was before she made her mistake. Her mistake was simple. She had suggested that humans deserved a seat at the Galactic Council. She had argued that their rapid advancement and creative solutions to problems showed intelligence worthy of recognition. She had dared to say that perhaps the Velkhari view of humans as clever animals was wrong. The council had not agreed. Now she stood as an example. Her silver skin had lost some of its shine during her months of house arrest. Her long dark hair was bound in the style reserved for servants. The elegant ridges along her cheekbones that marked her noble bloodline seemed to mock her current position. High Matriarch Celis spoke in a voice that carried throughout the hall without effort. Today, we demonstrate the generosity of the Velkhari people. Though Lady Ishara has shown poor judgment in her beliefs, we do not cast her into darkness. Instead, we gift her to the human ambassador as a gesture of our willingness to accommodate even the lowest species. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Soft and cultured, but cruel nonetheless. Ishara kept her eyes forward. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. The human ambassador stepped forward from where he had been standing among the crowd. Marcus Chen was his name. Ishara had seen him at council meetings before her fall. He was average height for a human, which meant he stood shorter than most Velkhari. His dark hair was touched with gray at the temples. His brown eyes were calm as he approached the platform. He wore simple, formal attire from Earth, a dark suit that looked plain compared to the flowing robes and light armor of the Velkhari nobles. To them, he must have looked like a child playing dress-up. High Matriarch Marcus said with a slight bow. His voice was steady. The gesture is unexpected. We hope you will find her useful, Celis replied. Her tone suggested she expected him to use Ishara for manual labor or worse. She has been educated in Velkhari history and customs. Perhaps she can teach you proper etiquette. More laughter from the assembled nobles. Marcus looked at Ishara for the first time. Their eyes met. She expected to see pity or perhaps hunger. Instead, she saw something she did not expect. He looked tired. Not of her, but of this entire performance. Thank you, High Matriarch, he said simply. May I escort Lady Ishara to my residence? The use of her title made several nobles bristle. Celis waved a hand dismissively. She is yours to name as you wish. Take your gift, Ambassador. Marcus walked to where Ishara stood. He did not reach for the chains. Instead, he gestured toward the exit. Shall we? Ishara moved on unsteady legs. She had expected many things, but not courtesy. They walked through the hall together while hundreds of eyes watched. Some looked amused. Others looked disgusted that a human would dare walk beside a Velkhari, even a disgraced one. The journey to the human embassy took 20 minutes by air transport. Neither of them spoke during the ride. Ishara kept her eyes on the city below as it passed. The beautiful towers and gardens of the Velkhar capital had been her home for 2 centuries. Now it felt like a prison she was leaving behind. The human embassy was smaller than most Velkhari buildings. It was built in a blocky style that her people considered primitive, but as they entered, Ishara noticed it was clean and well-maintained. There were plants from Earth growing in containers near windows. Books lined shelves along the walls. Marcus led her to a sitting room and gestured to a comfortable chair. Please sit. Ishara remained standing. What do you want from me? He looked at her with that same calm expression.
Right now?
I want you to sit down. You look exhausted. I am your property according to Velkhari law, she said. Her voice came out harder than she intended. Tell me what you expect, and I will comply, Marcus sighed. He moved to a small table and poured water into 2 glasses from a pitcher. He set one glass on the table near the chair he had indicated. Then he sat in a different chair and took a sip from his own glass. "I expect you to rest," he said. "I expect you to eat when you are hungry. I expect you to tell me if you need anything." He paused. "And I expect you to let me remove those chains, because they are barbaric." Ishara stared at him. "You mock me. I do not." He set down his glass and stood. "May I approach you?" The question surprised her so much she nodded without thinking. Marcus walked over and examined the ceremonial bonds. They were locked with an energy seal keyed to Valkyrie biometrics. He pulled a small device from his pocket and ran it over the locks. After a moment, they clicked open and fell away. Ishara rubbed her wrists where the chains had rested. Her skin was not damaged, but she felt lighter without them. "Your quarters are down that hall," Marcus said, pointing. "Second door on the right. There is a private bathroom attached. You will find clothing options in the closet. Take whatever you need." "Why are you doing this?" Ishara asked. Her voice cracked slightly. Marcus met her eyes again. "Because you are a person, not a gift. Because what was done to you today was cruel, and I will not participate in cruelty." He paused. "And because I read your proposal about human council membership, it was well-reasoned and showed deep understanding of galactic politics. You did not deserve what happened to you." Ishara felt something break inside her chest. Not her pride or her anger. Something softer. Something she had kept locked away during the long months of disgrace. "I do not understand humans," she whispered. Marcus smiled slightly. It was a sad expression. "Most species do not. We are very good at surprising people." He gestured toward the hall again. "Please rest, Lady Ishara. Tomorrow we can discuss your situation and what you want to do next. But tonight you are safe here. You have my word." Ishara looked at the strange human who had just dismantled everything she expected. Then she nodded and walked toward the quarters he had indicated. As she closed the door behind her, she looked around the room. It was simple, but comfortable. A bed with soft blankets, a window overlooking a garden, a shelf with books in several languages, including Valkyrie. 4. The first time in months, Ishara felt something. Other than shame or anger, she felt curious. What kind of human treats a disgraced noble with dignity? What kind of species values kindness over power? She would find out, but first she would sleep without chains for the first time in too long. Part 2. Breaking walls. Morning light filtered through the window in soft golden rays. Ishara woke slowly, feeling more rested than she had in months. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then memory returned and she sat up quickly, looking around the unfamiliar room. She was in the human embassy. She had been given to Ambassador Chen like a piece of furniture, except he had not treated her like furniture at all. She rose and found the bathroom. It was smaller than what she was used to, but well-designed. She cleaned herself and examined the clothing options in the closet. There were both Valkyrie-style robes and human-style garments. She chose a simple Valkyrie robe in deep blue. It felt important to hold on to some piece of her identity when she emerged from her quarters. She followed the sound of movement to a dining area. Marcus was there setting plates on a table. He looked up when she entered. "Good morning," he said. "I hope you slept well. I was not sure what Velkar eat for breakfast, so I prepared options." The table held fruit from both Earth and the Velkari homeworld. There were grain dishes and protein selections. It was more food than 2 people could eat. "This is too much," Ishara said. Marcus shrugged as he sat down. "I like having choices." "Please sit and eat whatever appeals to you." Ishara sat carefully. She selected some fruit and a grain dish she recognized. They ate in silence for a few minutes. It was not uncomfortable exactly, but she felt uncertain about everything. "You read my proposal?" she finally said. "About human council membership." "I did." Marcus took a sip of coffee. It was an earth drink that smelled bitter to her nose. "It was one of the better arguments I have seen. You understood the political landscape, and you made your case with logic rather than emotion." "It did not matter," Ishara said. Bitterness crept into her voice. "The council dismissed it immediately. Because it challenged their view of the universe, Marcus replied. Change is difficult, especially when it requires admitting you were wrong about something fundamental. Ishara looked at him closely. You speak like someone who has experienced this. I grew up in poverty on Earth, Marcus said. His tone was matter-of-fact. I was told I would never amount to anything. That people from my neighborhood did not become ambassadors. I had to fight for every opportunity. I had to prove myself over and over. He smiled slightly. So yes, I understand what it is like when people decide you are less than you are. Then why do you not hate the Valkyria? Ishara asked. They treat your entire species with contempt. Marcus considered his answer while he ate another bite of food. Hate takes energy. I would rather spend elsewhere. Besides, hate would not change their minds. Patience might. Consistent demonstration of human capability might. Building relationships one person at a time might. That will take forever, Ishara said. Probably. Marcus smiled again. But humans are very stubborn. It is one of our better qualities. Despite herself, Ishara felt her lips twitch toward a smile. She stopped it. She should not be comfortable here. She should not be enjoying this conversation. What do you expect from me? She asked. Truly, you said I am not your property, but Valkyrie law says otherwise. At some point you will want something. Marcus set down his cup and looked at her directly. I expect nothing. But I would like something if you are willing. Here it comes, Ishara thought. The real request. I would like your opinion, Marcus said, on diplomatic matters. On Valkyrie customs I might be misunderstanding. On ways to bridge the gap between humans and your people. He paused. But only if you want to help. I will not force you. Ishara stared at him. You want me to advise you? You're educated and experienced. Your insight would be valuable. Marcus leaned back in his chair. I know the council rejected your ideas, but that does not make them wrong. Sometimes the most valuable perspective comes from someone who sees things differently than the majority. The Valkyrie would see this as me betraying my people, Ishara said quietly. Would you see it that way? Marcus asked. I thought about that. Would helping humans hurt the Valkyrie? Or would it help both species understand each other better? No, she finally said. I would see it as continuing the work that got me exiled in the first place. Then you have your answer, Marcus said simply. They finished breakfast, and Marcus offered to show her his library. Ishara followed him to a room lined with shelves. There were books and datapads in multiple languages. She scanned the titles and froze. You have the chronicles of the first matriarchs, she said in shock. These texts are restricted. How did you get copies? I have friends in interesting places, Marcus said. I wanted to understand Velkar history from your own perspective, not from the simplified versions given to outsiders. Ishara pulled one volume from the shelf and opened it carefully. The text was authentic. She could tell from the formatting and the archaic language used. You can read Old Valkyrie? It's difficulty in a translation program, Marcus admitted. But yes, I have been studying your language and culture for 5 years. It seemed important if I wanted to represent humanity in these negotiations. Ishara felt something shift inside her. This human had spent years learning about her people. He had studied texts most Valkyrie had never read. He had put an effort to understand. What do you think of our history? She asked. I think your people accomplished remarkable things, Marcus said. I think your technological advancement is impressive. I also think you conquered most of it through force, and you have forgotten that part in your modern narratives. Ishara tensed. You insult us. I state facts, Marcus replied calmly. The early chronicles are clear about military expansion. Your people were warriors before you were philosophers. There is no shame in that. Humans have similar history. But it is important to remember all of who we are, not just the parts we find noble. Ishara wanted to argue, but he was right. The early Valkyrie had conquered dozens of worlds. Later generations had simply preferred to forget that uncomfortable truth. You are annoying, she said. Marcus laughed. It was a genuine sound full of warmth. I have been told that before. Despite everything, Ishara found herself laughing too. It started small, but grew until she was genuinely amused. When was the last time she had laughed? Months, at least. Maybe longer. This is strange, she said when the laughter faded. What is? Yesterday I was humiliated before the council. Today I am laughing with a human in his library. Nothing makes sense anymore. Marcus pulled another book from the shelf and handed it to her. Maybe sense is overrated. Maybe sometimes life takes us places we did not expect, and we just have to see where we end up. Ishara took the book. It was a human text on philosophy. She could not read the language, but the title had been translated into Valkyrie on a small label. You think I should stop trying to understand everything? I think you should rest, Marcus said gently. You have been through trauma. Give yourself time to heal. The universe will still be complicated tomorrow. That evening they ate dinner together. The conversation flowed more easily. They discussed terraforming ethics and argued about the best methods for maintaining biodiversity on colony worlds. Ishara found herself enjoying the debate. Marcus challenged her ideas, but listened to her reasoning. As she prepared for sleep that night, Ishara realized something unsettling. She had smiled more today than in the past year combined. She had felt like herself again, like someone whose thoughts mattered, and it was all because of a human, a species she had been taught to view as inferior. Maybe she had been wrong about more than just council membership. Maybe. She had been wrong about everything. Part 3. The choice 3 months passed like water flowing downstream. Shara found herself settling into a routine she never expected. Each morning, she and Marcus shared breakfast, while discussing the day ahead. She had begun advising him on diplomatic matters and discovered she was good at it. It's better than good, actually. The human embassy felt more like home now than the grand estates she had known before. Her quarters had accumulated personal touches. Books she enjoyed reading. Art she had selected from the embassy collection. Small plants she tended in the morning light. Marcus treated her as an equal, not as property or even as an employee, but as a partner in his work. When he prepared for meetings, he asked her opinion. When he struggled with Valkyrie customs, he listened to her guidance. When she suggested alternative approaches, he considered them seriously. It was everything the council had never given her. Today was important. Valkyrie trade delegation was visiting to negotiate mining rights on a contested asteroid field. Ishara had helped Marcus prepare his position. She knew the delegates who would attend. She understood their priorities and pressure points. The meeting took place in the embassy conference room. 5 Valkyrie delegates arrived in their formal robes. Their expressions showed barely concealed disdain for the simple human furniture and basic refreshments. Lord Kethis led the delegation. He was old even by Valkyrie standards, with silver skin that had faded to almost white. Ishara had known him before her fall. He had voted to exile her. His eyes widened slightly when he saw her sitting beside Marcus at the conference table. Lady Ishara, how unexpected.
Our Lord Kethis,
she replied calmly. Welcome to the human embassy. The other delegates exchanged glances. One whispered something behind her hand. They had not expected to find Ishara here, and certainly not sitting in a position of apparent authority. Marcus began the negotiations with a clear proposal. The humans wanted access to mining rights, but offered technological assistance in refining. Techniques that would increase yield by 40%. It was a fair deal. More than fair, actually. The Valkyrie delegates raised objections. Arguments were standard negotiating tactics meant to push for better terms. But Ishara noticed Lord Kethis watching her throughout. His expression was calculating when the delegation raised a concern. About human mining techniques damaging the asteroid stability, Ishara spoke up. The concern is understandable, but look at Section 7 of the proposal. The humans have included safety protocols that exceed even Valkyrie standards. The structural integrity will be maintained. Lord Kethis leaned forward. You defend humans. Now, have you forgotten your people? I defend logic, Ishara replied. Her voice remained steady, though her heart raced. The proposal is sound. Both species benefit from this arrangement. That is what trade negotiations should accomplish. The meeting continued for 2 hours. Agreed. By the end, the delegates had agreed to terms that were favorable to both sides. As they prepared to leave, Lord Kethis lingered behind. The others departed, but he stood at the doorway looking at Ishara and Marcus. The High Matriarch will hear about this, he said quietly. I assumed she would, Ashara replied. Lord Kethis studied her for a long moment. You look well, better than when I last saw you. I am well. He nodded slowly, then left without another word. Marcus waited until the embassy doors closed before speaking. That felt ominous. It was Ishara agreed. Her hands trembled slightly, and she clasped them together. The matriarch will not be pleased that I participated in those negotiations, that I helped humans achieve favorable terms. What will she do? I do not know. Ishara stood and walked to the window. Outside, the Velkhari city gleamed in afternoon light, but she will do something. She does not tolerate challenges to her authority. The response came 2 days later. A formal message transmitted directly to the embassy. Marcus and Ashara read it together in his office. The message was brief. High Matriarch demanded Ashara return to face judgment for betraying Velkhari interests. If she refused, she would be formally exiled. Not just disgraced, but completely cut off from Velkhari society. No contact with family, no access to Velkhari worlds, no legal protection under Velkhari law. Complete exile was rare. It meant Ishara would become stateless. A person without a home civilization? What do you want to do? Marcus asked quietly. Ishara stared at the message until the words blurred together. Return and face judgment. That likely meant imprisonment or worse. The matriarch would make an example of her. But exile meant losing everything. Her culture, her history, her identity. I could advocate for you, Marcus said. I could request that you be allowed to return with honor. I could explain that you acted as my advisor and should not be punished for doing your job well. She would refuse, Ishara said, and it would damage human standing with the council. I do not care about that if it means protecting you. Ishara turned to look at him. Really look at him. Marcus sat at his desk with concern clear in his eyes. He would sacrifice diplomatic progress for her. He would fight the matriarch herself if he thought it would help. When had anyone ever valued her that much? Why? She asked. Why would you risk so much for me? Marcus stood and walked to where she stood by the window. Because you deserve better than what your people have given you. Because you are brilliant and kind, and you should not be punished for seeing clearly. He paused. And because somewhere in the last 3 months, you became my friend. I protect my friends. Something warm bloomed in Ishara's chest. It was not gratitude, though she felt that too. It was something deeper. Something that scared her because she had not felt it before. I do not want to go back, she whispered. The admission felt like stepping off a cliff. Then you will not, Marcus said firmly. You will stay here. We will figure out the legal complications. We will find a way forward. I will be exiled, stateless. I will have nothing. You will have a home here if you want it. Marcus's voice was gentle but certain. You will have purpose. You will have someone who values you. He hesitated then, added more quietly. You will have me. Ashara felt tears forming. Velkhari rarely cried, but her emotions had become difficult to control lately. You make it sound simple. It is simple, Marcus said. Not easy, but simple. Stay or go. I will support whatever choice you make. But I hope you stay. Ishara looked out at the city that had been her home for 2 centuries. Then she looked at Marcus. At this human who had shown her more respect and kindness than her own people had in years. The choice was not simple. But it was clear. I will stay, she said. Marcus smiled. It was a warm expression full of relief. I am glad. Without thinking, Ishara reached out and took his hand. It was smaller than hers. Human hands were so different from Velkhari, but it was warm and steady. Thank you, she said. For everything. Marcus squeezed her hand gently. You do not need to thank me. You belong here, Ishara. I hope eventually you will believe that. The formal exile came through a week later. High Matriarch Celis issued the decree in a public ceremony. Ishara watched the broadcast from the embassy. She saw the matriarch announce her name as a traitor to the Velkhari people. She saw her family name stricken from the records. She cried that night. Marcus sat with her and did not try to stop the tears. He just stayed nearby while she grieved for everything she had lost. But the next morning when she awoke, she realized something. She had lost her old life, but she had gained something unexpected. She had gained freedom, and maybe that was worth the cost. Part 4. A new path. 6 months had passed since Ishara's exile became official. The pain had dulled to a constant ache rather than the sharp agony it had been at first. She missed her home world. She missed the culture she had been raised in. But she was building something new, the human colony. On the border world of Kepler 7 was celebrating. First landing day. It marked 5 years since humans had established their first permanent settlement on the planet. Marcus had been invited to attend as the diplomatic representative, and Ishara traveled with him. The settlement was small compared to Velkari cities. Maybe 5,000 humans living in modular buildings clustered near a river valley, but there was energy here. Children playing in the streets, markets full of both earth crops and local plants humans had learned to cultivate, music drifting from open windows, life happening all around them. Welcome, Ambassador Chen. The colony administrator was a woman named Rita Santos. She was short and round with dark skin and bright eyes that crinkled when she smiled. And you must be Lady Ishara. We have heard so much about you. Ishara tensed slightly. What have you heard? That you are brilliant, Rita said warmly. That you helped negotiate the mining treaty that has been so beneficial to both our peoples. That you chose to stand with humans even when it cost you everything. The easy acceptance in Rita's voice caught Ishara off guard. I am exiled from my people, and we are glad to have you among ours, Rita replied. She gestured around the settlement. Come, let me show you what we have built here. The tour was enlightening. Ishara saw humans working together on projects that seemed impossible for such a small group. They had built water purification systems and power generators. They had started schools for their children. They had even planted gardens full of flowers that served no practical purpose, but made the colony beautiful. Why flowers? Ishara asked. They do not provide food or shelter, Rita smiled. Because beauty matters. Because we are not just surviving here, we are living. Flowers remind us of that. During the evening celebration, Ishara and Marcus sat at long tables with colonists. They shared food and stories. A man named James told jokes that made everyone laugh, including Ishara. A woman named Yuki taught Ishara a card game that was harder than it looked. Children ran around shrieking, with joy while parents watched with indulgent expressions. It felt like family. Later, when the celebration had quieted and people were drifting toward their homes, Marcus and Ishara walked along the river. 2 moons hung in the sky, casting silver light across the water. They like you, Marcus said. The colonists. They are kind, Ishara replied. She was still processing everything she had experienced today. I did not expect such acceptance. Humans are good at that, Marcus said. We have had to be. Our own history is full of different groups learning to accept each other. It took time, and there was pain along the way. But we figured out that diversity makes us stronger. Ishara stopped walking and looked at him. In the moonlight, his face was thoughtful. She had been living with Marcus for 9 months now, working beside him, eating meals with him, talking late into the night about everything and nothing. Somewhere along the way, her feelings had changed. She had not meant for it to happen. She had tried to ignore it, but tonight, surrounded by the warmth of human community, she could not pretend anymore. Marcus, she said quietly. He turned to face her. Yes, I need to tell you something. Her heart was racing. These past months, living at the embassy, working with you, it has been the happiest time of my life, despite losing everything else. She took a breath. And I think I understand why now. Marcus waited. His expression was open but cautious. I have feelings for you, Ishara continued. The words came out rushed. Romantic feelings. I know it is complicated. I know I am living in your home because I have nowhere else to go. I know you might not feel the same way. But I needed to be honest, because keeping this secret was becoming impossible. Silence stretched between them. Ishara felt her face grow warm with embarrassment. She had made a mistake. She should not have said anything then. Marcus smiled. It was soft and genuine. I was waiting for you to be ready. Ishara blinked. What? I have had feelings for you for months, Marcus said. But you had been through so much trauma. I did not want to add pressure or make you feel obligated. I wanted you to have time to heal and find your footing. He stepped closer. But yes, Ishara, I care about you. Very much relief and joy flooded through her. Truly, truly, Marcus reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she did not, he took her hand. You are remarkable. You are brilliant and brave, and you make me laugh. I look forward to seeing you every morning. I admire how you have rebuilt yourself after everything you lost. I did not rebuild alone, Ishara said softly. You were there every step. We built it together then, Marcus said. Ishara moved closer until she could feel warmth radiating from him. Human body temperature ran hotter than Valkyrie. She had learned that from medical texts. Now she learned it from experience, as Marcus wrapped his arms around her. They kissed beside the river under alien moons. It was gentle and tentative at first, then deeper, as months of unspoken feelings finally found expression. When they finally pulled apart, Ishara was trembling slightly. What happens now? Now we go forward together, Marcus said. If that is what you want, it is, Ishara replied. Very much. They stayed on Kepler 7 for 3 more days. Rita offered them a private guest house, and they spent the time exploring both the colony and each other. They talked about their hopes and fears. They made plans for the future. They shared physical intimacy that was both awkward and wonderful as they learned what? Pleased each other despite their biological differences. On the last evening, before they returned to the embassy Marcus held, Ishara closed in the darkness. I need to tell you something, he said quietly. What is it? I love you, Marcus said. I know it is fast. I know the circumstances are unusual, but it is true. I love you, Ishara. Tears formed in her eyes again. Happy tears this time. I love you too. I did not think I would ever say those words to anyone, but I love you, Marcus. The return trip to the embassy took 2 days. Ishara felt like she was floating. Everything had changed, and yet nothing had. Marcus was still Marcus. She was still herself. But now they moved through the world as partners in every sense. A month later, Ishara woke feeling nauseous. She thought perhaps she had eaten something that disagreed with her. But the nausea continued for several days. Finally, she went to see the embassy medical officer. Dr. Sarah Kim ran tests with efficient care. When she looked at the results, her eyes widened. This is impossible, she muttered. What is wrong? Ishara asked. Worry crept into her voice. Nothing is wrong, Dr. Kim said slowly. But you are pregnant. Ishara stared at her. That cannot be. Valkyrie and human biology is not compatible. Cross-species conception should be impossible, Dr. Kim agreed. But the tests do not lie. You are carrying a child. Based on the development, I would estimate you are about 6 weeks along. Ishara's mind raced. She and Marcus had been intimate for nearly 2 months now. They had not worried about pregnancy because everyone knew it could not happen. The species were too different, except apparently they were not. Is the child healthy? Ishara asked. That was the important question. Dr. Kim ran more tests. Detailed scans that took over an hour. Finally, she nodded. As far as I can tell, yes. The fetus is developing normally. It seems to have characteristics of both species, but everything looks good. Ishara left medical and went directly to Marcus's office. He was reviewing trade reports, but looked up with a smile when she entered. The smile faded when he saw her expression. What happened? He asked, standing immediately. I am pregnant, Ishara said. She watched his face carefully. Marcus's eyes widened. He sat down heavily in his chair. That should be impossible. I know. Ishara moved to sit across from him. But it is true. Dr. Kim confirmed it. We are having a child. A child, Marcus repeated. He looked stunned. Then slowly a smile spread across his face. A child. Ishara, we are having a baby. You are happy? She asked. Relief made her voice shake. Happy. Marcus stood and pulled her up into his arms. I am amazed. I am terrified. I am thrilled. We are going to be parents. They held each other while the news settled over them. A Valkyrie and human child. Something that should not exist. Something impossible, but then again their entire relationship should have been impossible. That evening, Marcus proposed. He did it in both human and Valkyrie traditions. He knelt and offered her a ring in the Earth custom. Then he stood and recited the formal Valkyrie bonding pledge that Ishara had never expected to hear directed at her. She said yes through happy tears. They married in a small ceremony at the embassy 2 weeks later. Rita and several colonists attended. Dr. Kim served as witness. The ceremony combined elements from both cultures. As Ishara stood beside Marcus exchanging vows, she thought about everything that had led to this moment. She had lost her people and her old life. But she had gained something far more precious. She had gained love. She had gained purpose. She had gained a future she could choose, and soon she would gain a child who would belong to two worlds. Part 5. Queen of Two Worlds. 1 year after Ishara's exile, the galaxy had changed in ways no one predicted. The impossible child had become reality, and with her birth, the future shifted for two species. Ishara held her daughter while standing in the embassy garden. Little Myra was 7 months old now. She had her mother's silver skin but warmer tones that came from Marcus. Her eyes were dark like her father's but shaped like Valkyrie eyes. The ridges along her cheekbones were subtle but present, marking her mixed heritage. She was beautiful. She was healthy. She was everything Ishara and Marcus had hoped for. Today was important. The Valkyrie Council had requested a meeting. Not demanded, requested. That alone showed how much had shifted. Marcus joined them in the garden. He smiled at the sight of his wife and daughter together. Are you ready? He asked. No, Ishara admitted. But we go anyway. They traveled together to the council chambers. The grand hall looked the same as it had 2 years ago, when Ishara had stood there in chains. But everything felt different now. She walked in freely. She carried her child. She stood beside her husband as an equal. The council members were already assembled. High Matriarch Celis sat on her raised platform, looking older than Ishara remembered. But there were new faces too. Younger council members who had not been present during Ishara's exile. One of them was Counselor Vareth. She was young for a council position, barely 3 centuries old. She had risen to prominence by advocating for reconsidering the Valkyrie stance on humans. She had studied Ishara's original proposal and expanded on it. She was part of a growing faction within Valkyrie society. Those who believed isolating humanity had been a mistake. Ambassador Chen, Lady Ishara, welcome. Vareth spoke before the High Matriarch could. A subtle power move. And this must be young Mira. May we see her? Ishara looked at Marcus. He nodded slightly. Together they approached the council platform. Ishara kept Myra close, but turned her so the council could see. Whispers rippled through the chamber. Mira looked at all the tall Valkyrie with curious eyes. She made a soft cooing sound that echoed in the quiet hall. She is healthy, Counselor Vareth asked. It's very healthy, Ishara replied. She has characteristics of both species, but everything develops normally. Dr. Kim has documented everything thoroughly. It's impossible made real, Vareth said softly. A child of two worlds. High Matriarch Celis finally spoke. Her voice was tired. Why did you request this meeting, Counselor? Why bring them here? Because the galaxy has changed, Matriarch, Vareth replied. She addressed the whole council now. News of this child has spread across multiple systems. Everyone knows that Valkyrie and human had a child together. Everyone knows it should have been impossible. It proves nothing, Celis said sharply. It proves we do not understand humans as well as we thought, Vareth countered. Our biology should not be compatible with theirs. Our scientists said it could not happen. Yet here stands living proof that we were wrong. Other young council members murmured agreement. The older members looked uncomfortable. Vareth continued. It makes people ask questions. If we were wrong about this, What else have we been wrong about? Lady Ashara suggested humans deserved a council seat. We exiled her for that suggestion. Now her child exists as proof that humans are more than we believed. This is manipulation, Celis said. Her hands gripped the arms of her seat. You bring a child to sway opinion through emotion. I bring truth, Vareth replied. Ambassador Chen, would you speak? Marcus had been quiet until now. He stepped forward, still holding Yashara's hand. Hi, Matriarch. Honored council members. I did not ask for this meeting, but I am grateful for it. His voice carried through the hall. Yashara noticed many council members leaning forward to listen. 1 year ago, my wife was exiled for suggesting my people deserved recognition, Marcus continued. It hurt her deeply. It hurt me to see someone I love punished for seeing clearly. But we did not let that pain destroy us. We built a life together. We created a family. He paused and looked at Mira. She grabbed his finger with her small hand. This child represents everything your people said could not happen, Marcus said. But she exists. She is healthy and happy. She laughs when I tell her silly stories. She reaches for her mother when she wants comfort. She is learning to say her first words in both English and Valkyrie. Ishara saw several council members exchange glances. Even Celis looked less certain. You can continue to deny that humans deserve recognition, Marcus said. You can maintain your position that we are lesser beings. But every day my daughter lives proves that wrong. Every time she smiles at a Valkyrie grandparent or a human uncle, she shows that our species can be family. We have no Valkyrie grandparents, Celis pointed out coldly. Ishara was exiled. Her family cannot acknowledge this child. That can change, Vareth said quickly. If the council chooses to reverse the exile, Celis turned to stare at the younger counselor. You overstep. I speak for many, Vareth replied. She stood and addressed the full council. A vote. I call for a formal vote to overturn Lady Ashara's exile and restore her citizenship and honor. The chamber erupted in voices, some calling for order, others arguing for or against the proposal. Ishara held Mira closer, feeling overwhelmed. Then something unexpected happened. Little Myra reached out toward the High Matriarch, her small hand stretched across the distance. She made a happy sound like she wanted to go to Celis. The hall fell silent. Everyone watched. Mira was just a baby. She did not understand politics or exile. She just saw someone and wanted to say hello in the way babies do. Celis stared at the child. Her expression was unreadable. Then slowly, something shifted in her face. The hardness cracked just slightly. How old is she? Celis asked quietly. 7 months, Ishara replied. Does she have a name in Valkyrie tradition? Mirasolo Thishara said, Light between stars, because she connects to peoples. Celis was quiet for a long moment. The entire council waited. Finally she spoke. I am old. I have led this council for 4 centuries. I have seen the Valkyrie Empire grow and thrive. I have always believed our way was correct. She paused and looked at Myra again. The baby was still reaching toward her. Perhaps I have been wrong, Celis said. The admission seemed to cost her. Or perhaps I have been too slow to adapt to a changing galaxy. Either way, this child should not suffer for my mistakes. She stood from her seat. It was a formal gesture that signaled important words to follow. I call the vote myself, to restore Lady Ashara's citizenship and honor, to acknowledge that her exile was unjust, to recognize that she showed courage in standing for truth even when it cost her everything. The vote was not immediate. It took 2 hours of debate, but in the end, the council voted to restore Ashara. The margin was narrow, but it was enough. When it was done, Varath approached them. There is more, she said. If you are willing, Lady Ashara. What do you mean? Yashara asked. We wish to offer you a position, Varath explained. A new title created specifically for you. Bride Queen of the Bridge. You would serve as a liaison between human and Valkyrie peoples. You would advise the council on human matters and help humans understand Valkyrie culture. It is a position of great honor. Yashara looked at Marcus. He squeezed her hand. "It is your choice," he said softly. She thought about everything that had happened. The exile, the pain, the rebuilding, the love she had found, the child she now held. "I accept," Ishara said. "On one condition." "Name it," Vareth said. "My husband serves beside me as equal advisor. Not as my assistant, but as my partner. We represent both species together," Vareth smiled. Done. The ceremony to install Ishara in her new position happened 1 week later. She wore robes that combined Velkhari and human styles. Marcus stood beside her in formal attire from both cultures. Mira attended to, held by Rita, who had traveled from Kepler 7 for the occasion. As Ishara received the formal recognition from the council, she thought about the woman she had been 2 years ago. That woman had been so certain of her place in the world, so sure that her people were right and others were wrong. How much she had learned since then. How much she had grown. That night she and Marcus returned to their quarters at the embassy. They had been given larger rooms now to accommodate their growing family. Mira slept peacefully in her crib while Ishara and Marcus sat together by the window. "Do you ever regret it?" Marcus asked quietly. "Staying with me instead of returning to your people when you had the chance?" Ishara leaned against him. "Never. Not for a single moment. Even though it cost you so much?" "It gave me more than it cost," Ishara replied. She thought about how to explain. "I lost my old life. But that life was built on traditions that hurt people. It was built on viewing others as less than. I am glad I left that behind." She turned to look at him. "You showed me what it means to see people clearly, to respect differences instead of fearing them, to build bridges instead of walls. I would choose this path every time." Marcus kissed her forehead. "I am the lucky one. You chose me when you had every reason to hate humans." "I chose us," Ishara corrected. "I chose the possibility of something better than what came before." They sat in comfortable silence watching their daughter sleep. Myra would grow up in a world very different from the one Ishara had known. She would belong to both Velkhari and human cultures. She would never have to choose between them. She would be the first of many. Already there were reports of other Velkhari and humans forming relationships. The impossible child had opened doors no one knew existed. In the months that followed, Ishara threw herself into her new role. She helped negotiate trade agreements that benefited both species. She advised human diplomats on Velkhari customs and helped Velkhari counselors understand human thinking. She and Marcus traveled across multiple systems, speaking about cooperation and understanding. It was exhausting work. It was also deeply fulfilling. One evening, 2 years after receiving her new title, Ishara stood in the same garden where Marcus had first removed her chains. So much had changed since that day. She was no longer a disgraced exile. She was no longer alone. She was a wife, a mother, a bridge between two worlds. She had been given to a human as a mockery. Now she stood as his queen. Marcus found her there with Mira, who was now 2 years old and learning to speak in full sentences that mixed both languages. "There you are," he said with a smile. "Just remembering," Ishara replied. "Remembering what?" "The day you took off my chains." She reached for his hand. "The day you chose to see me as a person instead of a gift. Everything good in my life started that day." Marcus pulled her close. "Everything good in my life started when I met you." Mira tugged on Ishara's robe. "Mama, look. Stars." She pointed at the evening sky where constellations were becoming visible. Ishara picked up her daughter. "Yes, love, those are stars. Each one is a sun like our sun. Each one might have worlds where people live, like us?" Mira asked. "Maybe not exactly like us," Ishara said, "but people who laugh and love and build families. People who are learning to understand each other just like we did." She held her daughter close and leaned against her husband. They stood together watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. Two species once divided now joined through love and courage and stubborn hope, and it had started with one act of kindness. One human who chose to see clearly, one woman who chose to trust. The galaxy was changing. and Ishara was grateful to be part of that change. She had been gifted to a human as Mockery, but in the end, she had gained everything she never knew she needed: a family, a purpose, a future bright with possibility. She had become queen of two worlds, and she would spend the rest of her life building bridges between them.